One more minute. Okay, I think we will begin. Thank you, everyone who is out there participating in our Zoom informational session on our new Cyber Pathways Academy, or should I say expanded Cyber Pathways Academy. We waited a few minutes because people were still logging on, but now the number has pretty much stabilized. So we're gonna go ahead and begin our session. I'm Dr. Rao, the Superintendent of Schools, and I would like to introduce to you Ryan Strelo. Ryan Strelo is the Coordinator of Assessment, Evaluation, and Research, and working closely with our Cyber Pathways Academy staff. Also with us are Dr. Abby Benitez, one of the Directors of Schools, Ms. Sabrina Paraga, one of the counselors at our Cyber Pathways Academy, and Mrs. Byers, one of our principals, who is the principal of Burroughs Elementary School. And Adam Oren, our Director of Communications, will be on just online gathering all of your questions. So we're going to begin with Ryan. I just want to say that we know that this is a difficult time for parents. You're going to have to make some hard choices about how school starts for your child. So we hope that this session today will answer some of your questions. And we will be having 2 additional sessions. They're pretty much the same thing, but it will give you an opportunity to sort of replay the sessions because we're also recording them. That might be helpful for you in your decision-making process. So let's begin with Mr. Strelo.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Rao, and good morning. So as Dr. Rao mentioned, we understand that there's so much information that is coming to all of us at home, at work, in school. So part of our goal today and this morning is to be able to bring some clarity to some of the questions that we know you have and to provide additional information a little bit more specifically on some of our logistics. As Dr. Rao mentioned, we have multiple representatives of the team with us who will be able to respond to questions as much as possible through the Q&A function in the webinar. So please feel free to add your questions to that location. And as I said, as much as possible, we will provide responses, keeping in mind that there's a lot of information that would need to be discussed specifically with families after an application and enrollment. So specific questions related to schedules, related to coursework, options for their student, the design of their program are much more specific and would be fielded by the cyber team once the student is enrolled. At the end of the session, if time allows, we will check in with those who are serving on the panel to identify if there are common questions that we should be addressing for the entire audience. So we will jump right in. Our agenda, as Dr. Rao mentioned, is to share information on the expansion of the Cyber Pathways Academy program. So this is not brand new to SDOL. It has a new name and it has a new format. So we will talk about the different pathways for elementary and secondary and what they look like, the unique features of the program, specifically identifying how this Cyber Pathways Academy is different from other cyber charter schools, and they don't have the same features, and we will talk about that as well. And then what do I do next? So if I'm still interested and I'm trying to sort out all of this information, what do I do next in terms of expressing my interest and then applying to have my child enroll in the academy? So specifically, a lot of the work has focused around the expansion of kindergarten to grade 5. So you can see, and we will not read all of this to you, but to highlight some of these items here, the Accelerate Education is the platform that students would use in the elementary grade levels. So to give you an overview of what would take place, students would see, as soon as they log in, a dashboard of their courses, what the tasks that are assigned to them and how much work they've been completing. Additionally, there are resources for the learning coach, and this is something that we will take time to discuss further this morning. The learning coach is the parent or guardian of the student. So the learning coach plays an important role in students being part of Cyber Pathways Academy. So you can see here that there are resources available for the learning coach and how they can support their student in this work. In order to provide some flexibility, the platform does use live and pre-recorded sessions so that students are able to balance their responsibilities. And then there are various resources and other areas that will help students and their parents see how they are progressing weekly, and also the support teachers who they have from the district. So students actually have experience with multiple adults, but it does take all of those, the members of the team working together. So what would this look like? So this is a sample day for students in kindergarten to grade 3. And you can see that it's pretty specifically mapped out. And again, the parent and guardian as the learning coach would be creating this schedule for the student. So it is still a pretty full day of activity. And again, although it's just a sample, does show some suggested length of time for each subject area and other activities that would take place throughout the day. A lot of this information is also available on the website, where we do have the sample schedule and other items and documents that you would be able to reference now or at a later time. So what are the specifics of what happens for students? So students do receive instruction from Pennsylvania certified teachers through an alternative platform. And the reason why that's really important is that making a decision for a student to enroll in Cyber Pathways Academy isn't just like changing to a different elementary building. So students do move to a different platform. So it is not identical to what they would be receiving in one of our elementary, middle school, or high school buildings. The teachers go through the same certification. The standard still exists because it's still in the state. However, it is important to realize that it is more of a transition than just switching buildings or switching classrooms. And we'll talk more about those transition pieces in a little bit. Students at Cyber Pathways Academy also have regular check-ins with support teachers and other advisors in schools who are able to track their progress and provide support as needed. That also is coupled with in-person tutoring or support at the elementary hubs, which would be placed throughout the city, as well as the main hub, which is the Cyber Pathways Academy Center, which houses support for our middle school and high school students as well. Additionally, for older students, students have the opportunity to talk to college and career planners, the similar services to what students receive in the traditional buildings, to make sure that they're on track for their life after high school, college, career, etc. And then the platform does offer live tutoring for students as well. So you may have noticed the mention of elementary hubs. So to give you some more information on what that means, there right now, the design is that there would be 4 different elementary hubs placed throughout the city in different areas. So the teachers, the elementary support teachers who would be working with students in Cyber Pathways Academy would be housed, or at least would visit those locations in order to meet with students and their families. At the current time, while we have plans for where those locations may be, a lot of that will be dependent on where we see the interest from throughout the city. So we want to make them convenient locations, likely, obviously, in 4 different areas, so not in buildings that are right next to each other. But it's important for us to explain that this would not take place in every building. So there would not be a cyber support teacher in every single building, but there would be these 4 hubs where those teachers would be available. So my child may need to visit a neighboring building in order to have access. Please know that at the beginning of the year, particularly based on the hybrid model that's currently part of the reopening plan, that students and families would have the ability to connect with the support teachers and other advisors at the cyber program virtually. So while we are perhaps waiting for comfort levels to increase to go into the building, there would be a virtual option for that. So now that you have some of those logistics, what else do students receive if they are part of Cyber Pathways Academy? So students are still able to participate in district activities. So this includes sports, band, plays, field trips, and although you may have very young children right now, the same graduation ceremony. So it's important to realize that it's all of these same benefits and extra things, so to say, that students in traditional buildings receive. As you look through this list, I would just like to highlight a few other items. Equipment is provided for full-time students. So this includes a computer, a headset, and this could be iPad or Chromebook, depending on the grade level, power cord, backpack, school supplies. Internet reimbursement is also provided for full-time students through the equipment that is issued by the program. A large number of courses to meet academic needs. So many courses that students would have access to in the traditional building, they would also be able to access through Cyber Pathways Academy. We will be talking more specifically about some of our advanced courses in just a few minutes. And of course, the flexibility to the standard day of students would have access 24/7 to their coursework and be able to add in some additional work as well if they would choose to. So an important member of the team is the learning coach. So the parent and guardian serve as the learning coach. You can see the things that the learning coach is responsible for. So helping students through the lesson, talking about what students are learning, supporting them with activities, making sure that assignments are being completed, checking to be sure students are understanding, and communicating with the cyber support teacher as well. So a very important member of that team. So the intention is not for students to be working completely on their own, but with the support of all of these members. So the star there is really to bring attention to this, that the role as the learning coach is really key to success. So the parent making a commitment to helping the student go beyond what's online and really making those concepts real life. We have been fielding questions, and we know that there's a lot of details that are being desired about AP and IB courses. So there are course offerings for AP. Placement and scheduling into these courses would depend on the course history of the student and the current academic plan. The other thing to be aware of regarding AP courses is that these courses are not exactly what they look like at the McCaskey campus. So these courses are very self-guided, so there's not as much of that support from the online platform. And at times they do require additional materials based on the content of the course. So students can also be part-time students at Cyber Pathways Academy if they are seeking advanced credit. So they may be full-time students at the McCaskey campus at Phoenix Academy, but they may also engage in work through cyber for advanced credit. So if they're trying to add additional courses to their course history. IB coursework, although not embedded directly into the cyber platform, would still be available at the McCaskey campus. So students in that case would need to be in a blended situation where they are engaging in coursework at the McCaskey campus and through Cyber Pathways Academy. As a full-time student in cyber, students would not have access to the IB courses that they would otherwise have at the McCaskey campus. So this is where we get into those details, as we would say, we get into the weeds. And these are things that would be discussed with the experts at Cyber in order to help design an academic program and a schedule that meets the needs and interests of each student. So what are the expectations? The ideal expectation is that students would remain in Cyber Pathways Academy for an entire year. So as we mentioned earlier, this would be a decision to move from a traditional building into Cyber Pathways Academy. We do recognize the reality, and we have seen from the inquiries that families are pursuing or at least gathering more information about the academy due to their concerns about students being in the traditional building. And we recognize that and we understand. However, there's also an academic and a social concern about students transitioning too frequently and students transitioning too early between a traditional building and Cyber Pathways Academy. So as you can see, transitions generally are not made within marking periods. So if the student decides in the middle of September that they want to return to their traditional building, this would be worked on with the team at Cyber and also the team that would be receiving the student in the home building, and likely would only happen at the change of marking period. This eliminates too frequent transitions for students. Again, keeping in mind that they're not going to join a classroom that's engaging in the exact same type of work. So again, the expectation of parents and guardians serving as the learning coach and active partners. Being a student at Cyber Pathways Academy is not necessarily less time or less work. So students who demonstrate success in this program are highly organized and self-motivated and are able to work through these things independently with the support of their learning coach at home. Accommodations certainly can be made for services related to special education, for our English learners, for students with physical disabilities. Again, these are specific questions that would need to be fielded by the team at the academy, and also would need to include special education team related service providers to determine what the possibilities are and what would be reasonable in order to meet those needs. I had mentioned earlier that Cyber Pathways Academy is not a cyber charter school. So as an academy within the district, it is a cyber option for students, but they are remaining with us. So you can see the difference in some of these details. So students in Cyber Pathways Academy receive individualized and personal support. Whereas at cyber charter schools, this is more limited, and the support often only takes place in certain places throughout the state. So it is not necessarily right there available in the home district. Cyber Pathways Academy would be part of the local school district. It's not a private business that's housed in a different city. So this would be the tax dollars that go to the school district would continue to support that and not be taken away and sent to the cyber charter schools. So there is money involved in cyber charter schools. So although it seems to be a free option, it is actually not a free option in terms of the district. So the district is still providing that funding for the cyber charter school. And lastly, as you can see, the benefit of the Cyber Pathways Academy is remaining an SDOL student with the benefits and the supports of our school community, as opposed to completely leaving the district for a new school. And if we look at performance, we see that cyber charter schools historically are some of our lower performing schools across the state. So as a parent, as a student, as a family, what do we do next? So we are aware that many of you have already visited the resources available on the website. There is a complete section dedicated to Cyber Pathways Academy that includes information on the elementary pathway, the secondary pathway, and frequently asked questions. There is a separate survey on the website to indicate your inquiry in addition to the information that's being collected about preferences for the start of school. Submitting the application in a timely manner is key. I will share with you that we have lots and lots of interest right now, a high level of inquiry, but at this point, in order to take action and to move forward with enrolling the student, orienting the family, making sure that students are prepared for the start of the year, the application does need to be in place. So you can see at the bottom, applications, interviews, and enrollments would be processed as they are received. Any students that apply after Monday, August 10th may experience a delayed start. And that truly is due to the amount of processing that is taking place and making sure that students are prepared. So we don't want to just provide students with an access code to a platform and not have them ready. We want them to have time to meet their support teacher. We want to make sure we communicate with families on what is the hub, where do I find additional resources, and who do I contact for information. So as much as possible, we will meet all those needs, but there is a reality of the quantity based on the inquiries that we have at this time. The other bullet that's there is school counselors at the individual schools are a wealth of information also regarding the options that are available through cyber and all of our programs for that matter, but they are another source of information. So we will leave this slide here. I will open the floor to Dr. Rao for additional comments, and then we will look to our panelists to see if there are any common questions. I know that there are a lot of questions coming in, but if there are common questions that we should address in a broader sense for the whole audience.
Thank you, Ryan. So that was a lot to learn about our Cyber Pathways Academy. It is a huge endeavor on our part. While we have had a cyber program for grades 6 through 12, the new kindergarten through grade 5 component, it is quite extensive. And this team of people, alongside others who are not here today, have worked very hard to create an elementary Cyber Pathways Academy. We believe families have asked for that. We think families will be very pleased with it, but I just want to reiterate what Ryan said, because when a child is in a cyber academy, any cyber program, the parent or the guardian, especially at the elementary school, is going to need to be there with that child. I don't see a first or second grader turning on the computer and going onto a specific website. So as you make your decisions, you really have to think about how you or another adult member of your family will be able to support that child in their learning. And I did see some question about people who have to go to work and don't have someone to stay with their child during cyber learning. That would be illegal. You can't leave a 5, 6, 7-year-old at home alone doing cyber. And so, you know, you're gonna have to try and find someone to help you with this situation. We, of course, as you know from other information sessions, we are working with different childcare programs like the Boys and Girls Club and things like that, but we're not going to be able to provide that during the school day, except in a part-time basis with those organizations. So it is a hard choice to have to make, and you have a little bit of time before you have to make it. Those of you who have had information forms sent in, one of the staff will be calling you. We've had hundreds and hundreds of applications, and that's why this has taken a long time. And this is why we've also had to put in a deadline, at least, to get us through the first part. But you will receive a phone call so that you can ask all of your questions about how this works. So I'm going to ask Ryan to take over the question answer component.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Rao. So for Adam and Sabrina and Michelle, who we identified are working very hard to get your questions answered, we will just offer an opportunity for them to indicate if there are common things that we're seeing in the questions that we may want to address for the broader audience. So Mrs. Byers, can we start with you? Is there anything that you're seeing regularly that we can share with the entire audience?
Sure. There were some questions about the teacher that their child would have. And to answer that, they would not have a teacher that comes from the brick and mortar school. There would be a district cyber teacher that they would have the capability of being able to meet with, but the teacher that's delivering the instruction would be a vendor teacher through Cyber Pathways Academy. It would not be a teacher from the brick and mortar schools in SDOL.
Yes, thank you for that. So when we showed the image of the hubs, particularly for elementary, the plan right now is that each of those hubs would have a dedicated cyber teacher. So that teacher would be servicing many students, not just the students at that building, but the students in the surrounding buildings, but would not be the same teacher that the student would have had if they were in the traditional building. So Mrs. Paraga or Adam, any additional items that we want to share with the entire audience that we're seeing through the Q&A?
Well, I see a lot of questions around people who have filled out the information request form and haven't had a response. We will respond to all of them, but there are hundreds and hundreds of them. And so you have to give us at least a week to get back to you because there are so many, but we will definitely get back to you.
Yes, so that's important because each day, particularly after informational sessions, which makes sense, and we understand there is an increase in the completion of those inquiries. So the next thing that you will receive is additional information and the application that we have referenced several times in order to fill out. The return of the application is what really indicates the firm interest in wanting to participate in the Pathway Academy. Dr. Benitez, is there anything else that you've observed from the questions or anything additionally that you would like to share from your perspective?
Yes, I just wanted to make clear the relationship that exists between the teacher of record, which is the teacher that supports the platform learning, and the advisor that is an SDOL teacher, that it's a live person that they can go and meet with in case they needed extra support. But there's also that great addition of the parent being a learning coach and be able to interact with both those teachers to support the student. So that's going to be that three or triangle of adults will be able to support the student. But we have to understand that in the end, the student is the learner. So when making decisions about programming, we also need to make sure that we keep in mind how our student, our child, reacts to online learning and what would be the best possible route in terms of what decision they're making, whether they are going to cyber or they're going to stay with us during this time.
So I will just, as I'm looking as well, there are additional questions about the transition between the Cyber Pathways Academy and the traditional building. So the questions are, can I begin cyber and then once everything calms down or gets better or I feel more comfortable, can I move my student into the traditional building? So again, while the answer is yes, this is something that is done by a process that is coordinated between the team at Cyber and the building who would be receiving, so to say, the student back into the traditional classroom. So this is not something that we do quickly because we want to make sure that the student is prepared for that as well. Some of the other questions were, does it all look the same? And that answer is no. So it's not going to look identical. So the student is switching the way that they're receiving instruction, the way that they're interacting with content, the way that they're being assessed. So we also have to be very cautious of that as well as we are moving students. So it doesn't mean that they're stuck, but it means that there are times at which students would be able to transition.
And Ryan, I just want to clarify that we do that to create stability and to make sure that either coming in or leaving the pathway, the Cyber Pathway Academy, is a decision that is made with clear understanding on the parent side and clear understanding of how that decision will impact the student. So it is not a matter of bureaucracy or processes that are obscure. The processes are very clear and they are supported by our support staff who understand learning, but also understand what are the different issues that a student or a family may encounter when transitioning from one program to another.
Thank you, Dr. Benitez. There are some questions about times. So does work have to be completed within a certain time? Can we use evenings and weekends? And that is one of the flexibilities of engaging in the academy, is that it is available all the time. So if parents need to be using their role as a learning coach at a different time, there is that option. However, as you saw from the schedule, it is still a lot. So it's not necessarily less to do, there's just additional flexibility. We are seeing lots of questions too about the dual immersion program. The dual immersion program will remain housed at Wharton Elementary School, and there is not a dual immersion program through Cyber Pathways Academy.
And people did ask if they would lose their spot if they went into cyber and they were part of the Wharton dual language program. And the answer to that is it depends on if there's a waiting list. So if there's a waiting list, yes, someone would be put into that spot. But if there's no waiting list for your particular grade, then the spot is there until someone moves into that grade.
One of the other pieces is what happens if we get into a situation where the district, based on the governor, based on the Secretary of Education, if we need to move to virtual learning as we experienced at the end of last school year. And the questions are, does my student still stay in cyber? So again, if a student moves to cyber and the traditional elementary or middle school or high school building moves to virtual learning, the student would remain in cyber. So they wouldn't then have both the virtual learning from their home building and cyber. So they are two different programs. So regardless of what that looks like as we begin the school year or as any other situations occur, once students move to cyber, they would continue to receive their instruction through the cyber program. There was a question about state testing, and I'll speak to that as well. Students who are at Cyber Pathways Academy do engage in the same PSSA and Keystone tests as the students who are in the traditional buildings. Those are the same requirements, and we are responsible for their participation in the test and their performance as well. So we are seeing lots of great questions. Please know, as Dr. Rao mentioned, we do have 2 additional sessions. There are also community town halls that with a larger umbrella of the reopening plan. Some of this information is included in that as well, but not as much detail. As we continue to review questions that we see, we will update information on the website so that we can respond to some of these inquiries. Again, as I mentioned, there's a lot of information already there on the website. There's a Q&A section that speaks to a lot of these questions. And some of the specifics would need to be addressed once we know that the student is going to be on board at cyber. The turnaround time, there's a lot of questions coming in about the turnaround time. Again, right now there is processing of literally hundreds of inquiries. So as you receive those materials, we do ask for patience in the turnaround, and we recognize and appreciate that's what participants are writing. They just want to make sure on the timeline. So know that if we receive the application, we will begin to process it. The support team at Cyber Pathways Academy will reach out with additional questions. And if you are filling out the inquiry form, not all of those fields are required, but the more information that you do provide, the faster we can process that. Because there is also a need to go and determine some other pieces, grade level, building, student ID, if those pieces are not provided in the form from online. So that does slightly delay the process. So as much clarity and accuracy you can provide when expressing your interest, that will be very helpful to us as well. So Dr. Rao, is there any other information that you believe is we should be sharing at this time?
No, but I think we should, since we weren't able to answer all of the questions, we probably should put together an FAQ to respond to some of these questions and just attach it perhaps to the Cyber Pathways component of our website. And there's some
Yes.
questions there that we may not have the answers to, so I really want to have some time to find the answers and then put it together in one FAQ so all parents are able to see this.
Yes, and as I had mentioned, there is already some frequently asked questions on the Cyber Pathways Academy portion of the website, but we certainly can grab some of these items and add that there as well. As Dr. Rao said, there are things that are being asked that we either it's not an exact answer right now, or it is very specific to a certain situation. So we will certainly review these and make sure that somewhere these responses are available.
Okay, so we're going to leave you. Ryan, did you give them the exact dates of the next information sessions?
No, but I will. So the next session is this week, Friday morning, July the 24th, and that is at 8:30 to 9:30. And then the third and final session is Thursday, August the 6th, and that is from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. The same day that there's also an evening town hall for the entire reopening plan. So lots of information on that day. That is why we also have indicated the date of Monday, August 6th, so that we are responsive to parents.
Monday, August 10th.
I'm sorry, August 10th, thank you, for parents to be able to hear this information and then make an informed decision about the application and if it's the right place.
And just making a clarification that every session will have the same information. The only variability will be questions coming in.
Right. Okay, well, thank you to our panelists for being here today. We're going to get going on answering those questions for an FAQ. And thank you all parents and guardians who are here with us today to learn more about our program. Thank you and have a great day.